going to get the fur on the cuff next, and I'm going to go back and use my wave brush to get started, and some black paint that has been thinned with water, about half and half, about 50%, and I want to get up on the very tips and just gently pull in some fur so that it overlaps onto the beard, onto the shoulder or the red area, and even a little bit onto the hand at the bottom there. Okay. Then I'm going to rinse my brush, and I'm going to start out with my medium white, still using the wave brush. Thin the medium white, half paint, half water. Don't get it so thin that it's transparent. You still want to see a little bit, you still want to see actually quite a bit of pigment. Up on the very tip, don't put any pressure down, and you're going to pull in the direction that you see the fur on your photograph and on your pattern. Now this does not need to be skinny at this time. I'm just establishing the direction of the fur. So I'm kind of hitting the outside, and then I'm going to come in and do another row. And just a light touch. So you see it's kind of pivoting in a circle here. But I'm working in rows because I'm going to want to be able to shade this afterwards. Okay, and then I'm just going to kind of let that dry a little bit. While that is drying, I'm going to go back up to the fur that is on the top of the hat. I want to do just a little bit of shading up there. That's nice and dry for me now. So I'm going to use the wave brush, and I'm going to thin down some burnt umber, sorry. Burnt umber, so that it's very transparent. I want it to be a wash. And so when I do a wash, I mix about 80% water into my color. I want to get the one side of the hat darker, so I'm going to pull some burnt umber onto the fur, kind of coming from the root area, off to the right side of the hat, and kind of taper it, kind of run out of that color as I go across, so that I don't, I want to keep this a brighter white off to the left. And you may even want to put just a little bit on that back side there. Okay, and then I think I can actually brighten my center one more time. So I'll go back to using the rake brush, 1/4 inch rake brush, and some titanium white. Thin that about half and half. Half paint, half water. You want quite a bit of pigment. And I'll get one more layer. It's hard to get the white in just one time. So I'll start in the center here. I don't want it filled in solid. I want thin lines now. Kind of pivoting from the center. Kind of flip it off in different directions. But I want that center area to be a little bit stronger white. Then come around with the next row in front of it. And try not to get too carried away, but just a little bit, so that that's just a little stronger white off to the one side. And just a little more there. Okay, but that helps to kind of shade that off to the one direction. Gives you a little bit more dimension. And I'm going to get some definite darker burnt umber off to the right side, so that that's more in a shadowy area. And I can just use my wave brush for this as well. This time it's about half paint, half water, because I want a little bit more color. And I'll start at the root of the rose and pull some of the burnt umber at the root. And I will do this a little bit all over and then get stronger white off to the left side. So I'm getting a little bit deeper color at the root of each of those strokes, similar to what we did on the fur above on the hat. Okay, now I'm going to switch to my rake brush to do the white. Sometimes I have to stop and let this dry a little bit. We'll give it a shot, and if it's not working, I will stop and go on to another area. Half paint, half water, using the rake now. And let's see, I'm going to tip this a little more so I get a better angle for pulling my stroke. So now I want the tips to be a little bit brighter. And if you can get them to go in different directions, it'll make the fur look a little more natural. Light, light touch. Don't press down. Don't fill it in solid white. And I'd rather have to do it in a couple stages than try to get too much right away, because then it'll just get filled in solid and you'll have to go back and do your shadows again, which you can do. It's nice to know that you can go back and redo or fix things. Okay, and a little less off to that right side, because I am going to want to try and keep that a little darker over there. A little bit more in the center. A little more paint on my brush. Try not to lose all your shadows. The other thing is I am kind of tipping my brush sideways a little bit. I'm not on a total chisel edge. I've got it about 3/4 of the way tipped. That way I get different beginnings and endings instead of just a flat square. Alright, I think we'll let that dry a little bit and then I'll be able to tell if I need any more or not after it's dried. I want to take one last look at the fur of the hat and the beard. I'm going to do some tinting on the beard as well. One area that I always want to check is where the hat is touching the side of the hair. You do need contrast in there, so I want to make sure that one area is light, one area is dark. I'm just going to go ahead and use a angle brush. In fact, I'll use the 1/2" one. And I'm just going to use water at this time in the brush. No, actually I take that back. I'm going to go ahead and put extender in the brush just to be on the safe side. Then I want to use just a little teeny corner of burnt umber, just barely a little speck, and wipe most of that off on my palette. It's going to be very, very transparent. I want to get up under, just kind of wiggle some color in there. Get up under the hat where the hair is touching it so that I can have a little bit of contrast. Okay, I can check out the other side too. Alright, I could also do this up in the fur area if there's any of the spots that look like they got too flat. Just having just a little bit on the edge of the brush and kind of put in between some of the clusters. Don't do them all, just kind of hit and miss a little here and there to break it up again. It's going to give you just a little bit more dimension. I mean, this is very, very, very transparent. I hardly have anything on my brush. And of course, you get too carried away, you can always come back, put some more white on, but that'll give me just a little bit more contrast. Then in the beard, I did tint the original with just a tiny bit of purple. Now, the dioxazine purple in Traditions is very, very, very strong. I'm still going to just use my angle brush. I've got extender in it. And if I just take a little fly speck of that color, it's very strong. I'm going to add a little white to that so it's a little bit more of a lavender color. It's maybe a little more purple. And then wipe most of that off of your brush because you don't want much on there. And by having extender in your brush instead of water, it'll be a little bit of a safety net. I want to add just some little tints or washes of the purple here and there, even up in the mustache. Don't fill it in solid. It's just like little streaks, little tints. You know, I can add it on curls, I can add it throughout the hair. And let's see, maybe I'll get a little closer because the color, I think, on the camera is kind of fading away. And I just want this to be very, very pale so that it's not what jumps out at you when you first look at the piece. So just little bits here and there. And just kind of wash it in. Kind of hit a few little curls along some of the waves. Just gives it a little more interest. And there's lots of different colors that you can use. Sometimes I'll have blue, sometimes purple, sometimes pink. So I kind of use a color that's already in my design. And I'm going to be having some purple on the ornament, so I'll come back and use purple. You can put some in the eyebrows or anywhere you want. Okay, and that's enough for there. Then I think I am ready to start my pine needle. So let's turn this and zoom back out a little bit. For the pine needles, I'm going to use an angle brush. So I'll use this big angle brush, and I'm going to just use the chisel edge of it and just water this time because I won't be blending. I'm going to start out with the pine green, and I'll pat that good into the entire brush. But I'm kind of flattening the brush on my palette, so hold your brush at a 45-degree angle, kind of flatten that. I've got a little bit of water mixed in so it's a little thinner. And I'm going to use the chisel edge, let's see if this shows up on camera, to pull my lines. Well, let's get closer I think now, because this first color is not going to show very well. But I start out with like the center vein, and then I'm going to pull lines using the chisel edge of the brush along both sides. And I'll be coming back with lighter colors that'll show up better afterwards. So each of the pine needles, and you can decide if the pine needle is going to go in front of or behind the little curl. It doesn't matter. Either way will be fine. And just kind of keep going up, and then after I get the main ones in, I'll look see if there's any empty spots, and I'll go back and get some of those as well, just kind of fudging in some lines. You want these to look like they're going behind the ornaments that we'll be getting on there, so that's why I did not paint those ornaments in yet, because I know I'm going to mess in to that area with this color. So I've got those two in, and then I've got an empty spot here, so I'm just going to get some extra little lines coming out from there so it looks like there's another one, another tip of one coming in from there. And then let's get all the main, start out with the center vein, and you'll notice I'm leading, pulling towards myself with the short end of the brush, so the long tip on the corner is actually touching that center vein, and I'm pulling out away with the short corner of the brush. Reload often, little drop of water so it comes off your brush. And this is just much faster putting on the needles this way rather than using a liner brush or a script brush. And I do have some coming out from in front of this one ornament that's going to be purple, and it actually is coming right onto Santa. So I know that's a little intimidating, but pretend my center vein was like here. And just kind of fudge that in. And then go behind the ornament. And I'll be a little bit more careful when I do the next color. This color just kind of gets hidden. And I actually, the one down below it, I actually on the original have that coming onto Santa's beard also. So let me go ahead and pull that a little bit further while I'm thinking of it. Santa is up close and personal to those ornaments. He's thinking hard about them. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, now the top corner of the canvas also, and I'm going to zoom out away a little bit. Let's see if I can turn this, trying to get to where I can see. Okay, well, because of the angle that I am actually going to pull towards the center vein this time. And I'd rather have you go through the ornaments than avoid them and then not have the lines going in the right direction. Okay, and then like I said before, I want to just kind of fudge in some lines here and there so that it looks like there's more pine needles coming in so that I don't have big empty gaps. And these go on pretty quickly. Okay, then let's go ahead and do the next color, which is yellow-green light. So I'm going to stop and clean my brush. Just rinse it in the water. Don't need extender. Add just a little droplet of water into the paint color. And I'm not going to get as heavy-handed with this one now. I want to do a little less of it. I want the tips to have the most, and then kind of let it disappear as you pull back to the back half of your pine needle. So try not to go totally all the way to the back of the canvas. It's up to you if you want to come down the center vein again or not with this color. You sure can. In fact, I think I will on a couple of them. Try not to push down. Don't put any pressure down. You can get a skinnier line then when you're pulling with the chisel edge. Alright, then for the next color I'm going to add just a little bit of white into that yellow-green light. A little bit more of a minty color. And it's probably half and half. Let's take a look here. I think that'll work nicely, and a little droplet of water in there so it'll come off the brush. I could, if I want a little bit more yellow, I could even put a little dab of yellow into there. If it looks too minty for you, you could use just a little bit of the Hansa yellow and put in there. Let's try this color first. Now this time I really want to make sure I'm only getting the tips. I don't want to come too far into the back of the pine needle. So just these front tips with this lighter color. Make sure you have some water into your color, because if you don't, you're not going to get a smooth line. It's going to be broken up because of the canvas. Mix a little bit more, half green, yellow-green light, and half white, and a little drop of water. Loosen that up. And just carefully get no more than halfway back. And I think I'll leave that one dark. I'm not going to put any on there. If I get too light on the one that's coming on top of Santa, it may not show up, so I'm going to leave that one alone. And I could even come through and add some darker green in some of the lighter areas if I needed to.